children as well as educators, which is mostly bird related. We also do trainings for educators and nature educators especially, and teachers who can then take bird watching and birding to their students. We also have a network, a huge network of young birders for whom we do a workshop every year, and we do regular sessions like these every month, mostly on bird related topics, but we've also opened it to different topics now. And for today's session, we have Gauri with. Gauri is from Pune. She's a scientist. She did her zoology, her master's in zoology, and now she's almost about to finish her PhD in entomology, which is the study of insects. She's very interested in studying them, and today she's going to be talking to us about all about insects. So before I hand over to you, Gauri, a few house rules. We'll keep all of you on mute. If you have any question in between the session, please raise your hand and then we'll unmute you. You can also type in your queries and doubts in the chat box. But we will have some time dedicated at the end where you can ask your questions to Gauri. Okay, over to you, Gauri.
Great. Thank you, Sanya, and thank you also the team from Early Bird for inviting me here. I have always liked to talk about insects. I think like a lot of the people in the audience right now was not really interested in insects as a kid. I was a bit scared of them as well, but I felt that learning about them, knowing how they function, has really helped get over that aversion, and I've actually started to be fascinated by them. So I hope even if at the end of the session, even if you don't appreciate them, at least don't be scared of them. And I will consider that to be a successful attempt. So that is one of my selfish intentions of talking about this topic, is to reduce that fear as much as possible. So I'll just first share my screen and make sure it's running well, and then we will start. Yeah. Can you all see the screen? And it's, I hope also in the sharing mode. Yeah.
Yes, Gauri.
Great. Thanks. So as Sanya said, please, there is a session in the end where you can ask dedicated questions. But if there's something that is really, really urgent, you can raise your hand, and through the coordination of the team, you can ask these questions. We have a lot of question answer, small interactive sessions in the middle. So you also have a chance to voice your views in that forum. So let me just, while I'm talking about this, maybe you can take a minute or so to read this cartoon. We see on the left side that there are these bugs or insects on the leaves. They're munching away happily, and this bug seems to have made a pattern, and it looks like the bird over here. So these two bugs are saying that this third bug is trying to tell something, and probably trying to tell that there is a bird nearby. So this is something that I'll be talking about how insects communicate, not just with each other, but with other species of insects, other species of mammals, birds, whatever, and also interact with the ecosystem. Why that is important? Why is communication important in the first place? So if you look at the topic that is written here, there are a lot of words here which need to be defined. So the first one is, of course, sense, sight, and sound, which we'll be coming to in a while. But before that, we are going to talk about insect communication and how that happens. So before we do that, let's just break it down one by one and then learn about this. The first thing, um, yeah, first thing is insects. So insects are really interesting. Just one, I want to just maybe mention one thing, that my camera in the laptop is on one side. So while it might look like I'm not looking at you, it's because I'm looking at the screen. So don't feel offended by that. I am paying attention to all of you. So I'll talk about insects first. So insects are the most they are multicellular animals, and they have the most number of species on the planet Earth, and that is for multicellular animals. So among all these bigger animals that you can see with your eyes, We have the most number of species for insects alone. Insects themselves are part of a group called Arthropoda, and arthropods are characterized by jointed legs. Arthro means jointed, poda means legs. So that is a character of arthropods. They have an exoskeleton, which means like us humans, we have skeleton made of bones, which is inside our body. In insects, there is a skeleton, but it is not made of bones and it is located on the outside. So the outside, the hard exterior that you see for insects, like you see in these photos here, are all they are constitute the exoskeleton. And just like our skeleton, where these muscles attach to the bones, for insects also the muscles attach to this exoskeleton, which is located outside. And lastly, they have a segmented body, which means that their bodies are divided into certain number of segments or parts. And we will come to what those parts are in a minute. So
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry for interrupting. Advik, do you
no,
have
no,
something urgent to say?
yeah,
Yeah, can you unmute yourself? He's been raising his hand for for a
okay,
while.
no worries.
You are on mute. Can you
You have to
unmute yourself?
unmute and ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Insects
Okay.
are a part of the 98% of invertebrates.
Uh, yes and no. Invertebrates are not just insects, but a lot of different kind of animals. And we know about only a limited number of invertebrates. So I am not sure of the number. I would say most of the invertebrates we know are insects, but there are also a lot of them that we just don't know about. We don't see them in our surroundings very easily. So I agree that insects form most of them, but I'm skeptical about the number. Maybe we can verify it from some source. But they do make up a lot of the diversity.
Yeah.
Thank uh
Cool.
if
Thank
you
you.
have any other queries like this, can you please type it in the chat box and we'll take them in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Gauri.
Cool. Thanks for the nice numbers, though. It just shows how diverse they are. And just like you see in the picture here, they come in very different shapes, size, forms, colors, all sorts of these variations. Insects are also really cool because they evolved a very long time ago. So 400 million years ago is a very, very long time. And they have been evolving, so they have been changing with the different environments they have been in for these many number of years, and that's a long time to be on Earth for. So because they have been there for so long, they have colonized almost all sorts of ecosystems. They're found on plants, they're found in soil, they're found in water, they're found in air. So except a few really extreme environments like Antarctica and very high altitude regions and some other extreme regions like that, insects are found literally everywhere on the earth. And they are given the number of years they have been on and the kind of body structures and all, which we'll talk about in a while. They have been incredibly successful at being able to live in such very different kind of environments. They are also the only invertebrate group which has evolved flight. So if you basically look at other kind of invertebrates, say like sponges or worms and so on, they of course don't have flight. But invertebrates are the only one which have evolved, and they have really used it well to their advantage because they are now able to travel much further. They're able to colonize and escape quickly, and that makes them really successful. So this is something very cool that in spite of being people consider invertebrates to be not really complex and a little simpler forms of life, but that's actually not true. And we'll come to that in a while about how they also have their own systems in the body and outside to live in this environment. And lastly, like I said, they are found in almost all ecosystems. Even in this photo, you can see them on various substrates. And we'll now slowly move on to see how they are able to colonize and live in these ecosystems. So now we'll have a small quiz, and you can unmute or you can type in the chat. I'm going to show you some pictures and you can just quickly type in what that insect is. So this is the first one I'm hoping you all have seen around you. Maybe you can, I think Sanya, I'm not able to see the chat, but just let me know with a thumbs up if this is the correct one. I'll move on to the next one.
Sure. Right
Yeah,
now, I don't have any answers coming in. Can you all type in what insect this is?
you should have seen it even if you live in an apartment and you have a small garden in your window. You would have seen something like this for sure.
Okay, someone's also saying it's a tiger butterfly. Some of them have
Okay, very
written
precise.
butterfly.
It is. It is a tiger butterfly. That's exactly what I've written. So I'll show you the next photo. You know what this is? The name is a bit of a misnomer, but you can, as a hint, I'll tell you, we are found in books and old libraries and so on.
Okay, we have some answers coming in. Silverfish, earwig.
Yes, it's a silverfish. It's called a silverfish, but it's clearly not a fish. It's an insect. It lives in those books which they eat these decaying old glue and such in older books. So if you ever go to a library and if you are a reading person like I am, then you will definitely find this insect there. Then the next is this. Do you know what this is? It looks very cool, like a mask or so from some tribe in Africa, maybe.
Type in your guesses,
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah.
Beetle. Some
Okay,
people
close. Not a
more
beetle, but close.
guesses. X leaves. True bug. True bug. What's that? Tree bug.
Yeah, yes, it's a true bug. So in bugs also there are different types. Some are okay, I won't go into that, but yes, it's a bug. Let's just leave it at that. It's a red cotton stainer bug, and you will see it around in under some trees, which are the host plants. I think now is the season for them to emerge. So keep a look out for that. What is this? Okay, now the answers are coming in. Okay, some people are saying mosquito, which is yes, in a way, because mosquito is a fly, and this is also a fly. It's not a mosquito. It's called a robber fly. It's a it's a very cool fly because it's a predator. It hunts other insects, and you see these bristles which are on the legs over here. It helps it to clasp the prey very tightly. So it's a really cool predator. Yeah. Have you seen this? If you have pets, I am sure you must have seen this. Okay, I'm getting bedbug, termite, some. Okay, that's further. A flea, yes, it's a flea. So a tick is a little bit different. I think Bhargavi, you do have a pet, which is why you were so confident. Yeah, it's a flea. It's an ectoparasite. It feeds on the blood of other animals like pets, cats, dogs, and other things like that. We also have this. I guess you must have seen this as well. Yeah. Yes, a lot of people have seen it. It's a dragonfly, that's correct. So it's also a very cool predator. All it has these four wings which can move independently of each other. So this is the inspiration for making helicopters. So it's called biomimicry. We have been Humans have always been inspired by nature, and this is one example of that. So these are also amazing predators, mostly found around water bodies. Um, yeah. Have you seen this? Someone says lynx. Not a lynx, but a spider, a crab spider, yes. And yeah, yeah, crab spider. And have you seen this? The second one is not a spider. Okay, pet people, yes, tick, correct. This you'll also see when you have pets. Or even if you go out in the wild, I'm sure you'll be bitten by this multiple times. People will vouch for it. But are these really insects? They're not. So we might confuse all these similar looking things in under one umbrella. Spiders are not insects, and ticks are also not insects. They fall under the same group called arthropoda. Under arthropoda, insects are a different group, and all of these come under arachnids, which is another different group. Another group under arthropoda is what do you say? It's the group which constitutes lobsters, crabs, prawns, and so on, these marine invertebrates. And there is yet another group which is composed of things like millipedes and centipedes and so on, which also have jointed legs, but they are not insects. So this particular exercise was just to bring to your attention that while insects and these other animals look very similar, it's best to just get a closer look at them and actually try to identify which is an insect and which is not. And ticks and spiders are the most commonly confused of these other arthropods, which are confused as insects. So, yeah, now we have another activity. Um, yeah, so you notice how I am communicating with all of you right now. I'm talking in English. I'm looking at a screen and I'm talking to you in a slow space, in a slow speed, sorry. But what if I start speaking in a very, 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 very low volume? You won't be able to hear what I'm saying. So even if I am correct, I am speaking in a language that you know, even if the language is different, the volume is different. If I'm, for example, wearing a very scary mask and talking, it's not really going to be effective. So, as a as a communicator, as a person who's trying to convey some information, it is important that this particular communication process is done in a way that is conducive to the receiver, which is you people. So, what are the components of this communication which are important, because of which the message I'm sending across to you is communicated effectively? So, for example, I was talking about the tone, I was talking about the language. If, for example, I start speaking in maybe French, some of you may understand, some of you may not understand. Some of you might understand some parts of it, some words of it, and not the entire content. And that is not really effective. So basically, whenever you are trying to understand the process of communication, this is what you need to keep in mind, that there is a sender. In this case, it is me because I am talking about something. Then there is a receiver, which is you all right now because you're receiving this information. So I'm sending the message across to you through the speech and the slides and so on. And you're also giving feedback. So you are giving all these answers to me. For example, if I start, for example, if I go on mute, you're going to tell me, okay, I'm not able to hear you. And I'm going to take that feedback and change how I'm communicating. So both sending the message across and getting the feedback from the receiver to get the message information across is part of communication, and all these components have to be in place for a communication strategy to be effective. So let's just again go through this process one by one. Yeah, so again take a minute or so to look at this cartoon. You see a ladybug which is trying to call a bee, I think, and is not able to reach the bee. The bee is just buzzing. It is talking in its own language, but the ladybird is not able to understand. So this is what I was talking about, talking French, for example. In this case, talking bee. So the bee is trying to communicate. It is certainly sending something across, but the ladybird is not understanding what this is. So while this is on the face of it might be communication, this is not an effective strategy of communication. And that brings me to what makes this communication process effective. So the first thing is that the sender has to send a signal or the information which is of good quality and which is reliable. Meaning the quality or the information that is contained in it should be able to convey the message correctly. And reliability, meaning there should be no false information. It shouldn't be like I'm saying one word, but it means something else. Then the signal is not reliable. So that is an important component from the sender's side. From the receiver's side, the receiver needs to correctly perceive it, means take the information inside and also interpret the information in the correct way. So, for example, in my language, if a dog means a cat, in your language, a cat means a cat. Even if I'm saying dog, you're not going to understand what I mean because you are going to interpret it as a cat. So you should be basically should be on the same page about what these words mean, and then only you can correctly perceive and interpret the signal or the information, and thus the communication process is going to be effective. The third thing is, of course, the environmental characters. So, for example, if we are located on the mountain, I'm trying to communicate to you from across the mountain, I might have to use some other ways to communicate because there is a huge mountain, you can't really see me. So even if I'm waving my hands as much as I want and making all sorts of colors and all these things, you might not be able to see it. But if I'm on top of a mountain and you are at the bottom, then you are going to be probably able to see it much better. So the environmental characters like the topography or at what height you're on, whether you are hidden in some corner, in some cave, all these things also really matter. And there are, of course, other characters like the temperature of the place and whether there are predators nearby and so on. So all of these characters also are critical in making communication effective. And lastly, of course, the signal transmission characters. I was talking about talking in a low voice. So I am really communicating, I am talking, but the volume is not enough. So even if you see my mouth moving, you are not going to hear anything. And which is why it is important to see that whichever signal I'm transmitting is actually reaching that person. I'm putting enough energy into that signal so it is reaching that receiver. So all these characters of the signal itself are also very important to make sure that the this thing doesn't happen as we see in the cartoon here, and we are able to communicate and understand each other properly. So yeah, so now there's an activity. I'm going to I'm going to ask a question, and I guess I will answer, but you will have to say if you're able to understand it or not, right? So I'm going to communicate one thing, but I'm going to do it in many different ways. So for example, I want to tell you all that today I'm feeling really good. How can I do that? So the first thing I'm doing is, of course, I'm telling you that I am feeling good. So this sentence itself conveys the meaning that that person is feeling good. So these words are being used, that those sounds, those vowels are being used to communicate that information. On the other hand, if I, for example, make a sound like I'm really happy, I'm smiling, so those visual cues are also going to tell you the same thing, that I'm clearly feeling good about myself. If I, for example, show signs like a thumbs up, that also conveys the information that I am feeling good. So basically, what we can do is we can use different modes of these conversations or different modes of these communication to convey the same meaning depending on what the perception of the other person is. If, for example, I'm talking to someone who's visually impaired, I will have to use words and I cannot rely on sign language in that case. But if I'm talking to someone who's hearing impaired, I can't speak, but I can use sign language much, much better because that's what they'll be able to perceive. So depending on the signaler and the receiver, we are going to be able to modulate these strategies. So now maybe you can now start typing or unmuting that when I was talking about doing a thumbs up or I was talking about facial expressions, what kind of body parts did I use and what body parts did you use to understand what I'm conveying to you? So maybe we'll start with a thumbs up. When I did a thumbs up, what body part did you use to receive the information that I'm giving you right now?
You can
Again, you
type
can
in the
use the
chat
chat.
box or from the reaction button on your screen, just raise your hand and then we'll unmute you. Okay,
Yes.
Ishan, you can unmute yourself. You want to say?
When you were doing the thumbs up, I think your hand, your
Yeah,
thumb.
correct. And how did you get the information that I'm doing a thumbs up?
Like
You
understand.
saw what
Yeah, by seeing.
through, correct. So you used your eyes. So you used your eyes to see some visual cue that I'm giving.
Yeah.
Correct. So in a similar way, when I'm talking right now, what body part are you using to understand this?
Um, my
Okay. Someone has written ears,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So I'm talking and you're using your ears to listen to that, whatever the information is being conveyed right now. So the point of telling you this is that while I am using different kinds of body parts to convey the information, my hands, my face, and so on, you are using different kind of organs to receive the information and interpret it. And we humans, we have these organs, which are five of them, and they are called the sense organs. So eyes and ears are examples of that. Let me just, yeah, talk about these, and maybe you can all quickly chime in what other sense organs are there and what they are used for. So eyes, you said for seeing, ears for hearing. Where do you use taste, for example? Yeah, eating. Eating pizza or eating whatever you like, but yes. So it helps us to determine whether the food is palatable or not, good enough to eat, whether it has become spoiled. Do you use your nose also for eating? Do you smell the food before you eat it? I'm guessing a lot of you do, yes? Yeah. And where do you think you use touch? What things do you determine by touching? A pillow? Yeah. Most of the taste comes from smell. That is true. Taste or flavor rather, not just taste, is a combination of taste and smell. Oh yeah, Bhargavi's dog's fur. Okay, I can see you all typing away very ardently. So let me just bring you to these things one by one. With touch, we usually sense things like temperature, pressure, and texture, and so on. So, for example, if there is a very hot vessel on the stove, you don't touch it directly because you know it will be hot, and you might have learned it by experience by touching it someplace sometime in the past. You also feel texture, whether something is soft like your dog's fur, or something is very hard like the ground, and that helps you determine how much pressure to put and so on. You also use taste to sense the food that you're eating. Some people might have a sweet tooth, some people like sour food, some people just like salty food, lots of chips and all. And all these senses, all these information is conveyed through the taste sense. Then we also have hearing. You not only hear what I'm saying, but you also sense the loudness of it, how, what is the frequency of hearing. If some of you had attended the talk on bats a few months ago, you might have heard about the bats making echolocation sounds, and that is a different kind of frequency. And of course, we also can judge what the direction is, whether it's coming from the right side or the left side of your orientation where the sound is coming from. You also have sight. You are talking about looking at facial expressions and all, but you also look at things like colors, the shape, the distance of the object from you through the use of sight or your eyes. And lastly, of course, the smell. Someone talked about taste and smell going together. So with smell, we can make out whether, say, the food has gone bad, whether the flour has a pleasant smell or not. Or, for example, if there's a gas leaking in the house, you get that particular smell that comes, and you immediately go and turn it off and take care of it. So, smell is also really important for us to find our way in the world. So in humans, we have these five sense organs, which are really common. A lot of you described it in the chat box also. But today we are talking about insects, and humans and insects are very similar. It might not look from this diagram how similar they are, but let's just go one by one. They both have a head, which is on the right side. You can see the insect's head, and of course, humans also. We have a head here. We have legs, which are a little bit different structurally, but we do have legs. Most of the internal organs are also same. They have a brain, they have muscles, and so on. But in spite of being similar in many ways, they are also dissimilar. So how is that? So the first one, as I spoke about in the first slide itself, is the presence of the skeleton. In humans, we have a skeleton inside, so it's called the endoskeleton. And in case of insects, they have a exoskeleton, which is external skeleton. Then we, as a external barrier to the body, have the skin, but in which is softer. And the insects have something called as a cuticle, which is a hardened structure on which all these muscles and everything attach. Humans have a closed circulatory system, meaning all our blood flows through blood vessels and these tubes that go throughout the body. But in case of insects, it's actually very interesting. It's called the open circulatory system, where all of the body of the insect is like a one huge cylinder or a one huge volume, and the organs are basically bathed in that liquid, which is equivalent to our blood. It's called a hemolymph. And so it's called the open circulatory system because there are no vessels or anything through which this hemolymph is going to flow throughout the body. And of course, there are some other peculiarities which we are going to talk about now. But the point of this slide is to just and convey to you that even if they might look very similar or dissimilar, some of the fundamentals are very, very like humans for insects, while on the other hand, they're also very, very different. And that's what makes it very fascinating to understand how exactly are they living in this world. So let's just go over this so that we are all on the same page that what exactly is the body plan of an insect. So this is like an activity book, and you see all these different parts being labeled. So let's just go from the box on the top left, move one by one to understand what each body part is, because we are going to keep referring to these terms, these body parts in the coming part of the presentation. So maybe someone can put in the chat about what the first thing is, the one on the top left. What is that part called?
Uh,
Okay,
that
someone described everything. Sorry,
that
Advik, please go ahead.
that top left is the antenna.
Great. Okay, a lot of you have mentioned it. So yeah, it is the antenna, correctly recognized. So antenna is a sensory organ on the head. It has different of these sense organs. It is always paired and it is segmented. So it is made up of smaller bits or segments. Can someone tell me what the top right part is called?
A wing.
Labeled top right.
A wing.
Could you, sorry, could you repeat?
A wing.
A wing. Correct. So it is a wing. They help them to fly and they are also paired. Some insects have four wings, some of them have two wings, and some have no wings at all. But whenever they are located either as two wings or four wings, they help them to fly. Third, oops, I only told it. Never mind. So the third one is the head. It is like our head. It has the antenna, it has the eyes, the brains, and the mouth parts through which they feed from. Okay, now the fourth one, I'll leave it to you. You can maybe tell me what it is.
Is it a back?
Close, but what is the back located on? Someone said abdomen. Abdomen is not this part. Yeah, someone says cuticle, no. Thorax, yes. Rohan has said thorax, which is true. So let's
Thorax.
correct. So this is the thorax, which is the middle part. It is equivalent to the chest in humans, where we have the internal organs. So they also have internal organs. But the most important thing is that they are the places where these wings and legs are attached to the body. And they have special holes here called spiracles, which are holes on the side through which the insects breathe. So they don't have a nose to breathe, but they have these holes through which they are able to breathe and exchange oxygen. Spiracles very prominent in the thorax. What is the one on the bottom left?
The butt.
Yeah. What is the scientific term for a butt?
The where
Some people are,
the place where the
yeah,
bee stings.
yeah. But the scientific word I was talking, as some people have already put in, is the abdomen.
Ma'am,
Yeah,
it's the abdomen.
correct. Yeah, it is the abdomen. Yeah. So it is the part which contains the gut. The gut is like the stomach and the digestive tubes, the tract, and also the reproductive organs of the animal. The spiracles that I was talking about in the thorax, some of them are also located in the abdomen, but a few or so. The abdomen is mostly the place where most of the digestion, the reproduction, excretion, all these things occur. And what is the bottom right one, the last one?
The legs.
Correct. Legs. Again, people in chat are also very active. It is a leg. Yeah. It helps them to locomote, that is, move from one place to another. It is also a paired and a segmented organ. So I'm glad that all of you were able to so quickly give me the basic body plan of an insect. And that is important, like I said, A, because we are going to use these terms a lot in the future, so you know exactly which part I'm referring to. And secondly, uh, you see that this is a basic body plan. So all the insects have these parts. They're just in different shapes, sizes, forms, thickness, and so on. So because of the variations, small variations in these basic body plans, insects over these 400 million years have evolved into more than 5 million species globally. And this is just the number that we have actually been able to identify. There are many more of these insects which are undescribed, not discovered, and simply we just don't know that they exist. So 5 million is a huge number, and that just shows how successful they are. And hopefully that is one reason to also admire them, how much they have been able to colonize and live in these ecosystems. So, as I was talking about, all these insects have very different body forms. This image is a bit pixelated, but you can still see, for example, a mosquito is much thinner in terms of the body as compared to a bee, which is much more wider and broader. But on the other hand, they have different structures, like wings are different. The cuticle is red colored and very hard. But in this case, for example, a butterfly has very large wings, and a moth also is very similar to a butterfly in that sense, that very large wings and a much narrower body. And there is a flea which does not have wings at all and it just jumps. So all of these body forms they follow the same basic plan that we were talking about: head, thorax, abdomen, having a wing, in some cases having a leg, and so on. And that's why this is how you start to understand the beauty of insects when they come in such different shapes, colors, sizes, etc. You also have different developmental strategies in insects. So you might have seen butterflies which lay eggs on some plant leaf or stem near you, which then hatch into larvae, which are called caterpillar or grubs in case of beetles. And these caterpillars basically just eat and get bigger and bigger. And then they turn into something called a pupa, which is a cocoon, a stage in which the animal is not really moving. It is in an enclosed container of sorts, and it reorganizes and emerges as an adult. So this process of being converted from a larva to an adult is called metamorphosis. So it completely changes. A caterpillar looks very different than a butterfly or a moth or a beetle or those kind of animals. So this complete metamorphosis is one strategy which the insects use, and it's called a homometabolism strategy. On the other hand, there are insects like the cockroach here or the praying mantis, which are born out of eggs, but they basically emerge as tinier versions of adult form. So they look like a small insect and they keep growing in size, and they shed the exoskeleton as they become bigger, and it basically just grows in size. And cockroach is a very fine example. You see smaller cockroaches, bigger cockroaches, and then you see the egg case. So
Ma'am,
in this case, the adult and the younger one, the juvenile, looks very similar. So this is not a complete metamorphosis. So these are again two types of strategies that the insects use. in order to complete their life cycle. Someone has a hand
Yeah.
raised.
Advik, Ishan, and Advik, do you want to go first? Three people have their hands raised.
Yes, but the
Yeah.
butterfly doesn't directly fly out after it has left the pupa. It just waits on the pupa till its wings harden, because when it comes out, its wings are very small and wet.
Right. That's true. So you, I'm guessing, have some butterfly cocoons in your garden or somewhere near your house?
Sorry, Gauri, didn't hear you.
Sorry, I was just saying that maybe you have some butterfly cocoons near your house because you have seen all these things happen, right? So basically, it's very interesting that they can't just simply move quickly from one place, one stage to another, but they need to transition slowly. Like you said, let the wings harden and dry out before they start flying.
Ishan, you also
Great.
had a question.
Yeah. So, dragonflies are like butterflies, but dragonflies have butterflies have a bit broader wings than dragonflies.
Mm-hmm.
The dragonflies have bit
Correct. It has a bit smaller and more streamlined wings. Yeah. You can see it here in the photo as well,
and
that the shape
dragonflies
of,
come from a cocoon too. They form a no, they form an
um,
exoskeleton.
right. So exoskeleton is found in all insects. Actually, dragonflies are more like this, the life strategy is more like a cockroach, where they don't pupate in a cocoon, but they just become bigger and bigger and develop newer structures. Yeah.
Anubhav. Anubhav also has raised. So,
Yes.
Is it true that dragonfly larvae live in water when they are small with pincers, hunting, and when they grow, they just climb out of the water and become a
Yes.
dragonfly?
Yes, it's true. So mosquito larvae are really good predators. They hunt other insects, mostly mosquito larvae and other such small plankton and so on in the water. So they keep eating a lot. They are very successful at hunting, just like the adult form is. And once they're only the adult form is has the wings and it emerges and flies around in the water. But if you do have a pond nearby, I'm sure you'll find a lot of dragonfly larvae in
Uh,
there.
okay. Gauri, do you
Okay.
want to take more questions? Can you keep your questions for the end so that we can see more
Yes.
of the slides? We'll come to these
Yes.
questions
Yeah, we'll come to them. Just
now.
keep them ready in your mind. Maybe you can type it in the chat box and we'll come to them. I have very few slides left, so don't worry. You have a lot of time to ask questions. Great. So now I'm going to dive into the actual part of this session. I also wanted to take this opportunity to maybe familiarize you with the kind of insects we have. And like I was talking about the diversity of body plans, developmental strategies, they also have a diversity of sensory organs that they use. So in the title of the presentation, we had mentioned sight, scent, and sound. So let's talk about the sight part first. So insects do have eyes. They are of two types. There are the first type, which are called as compound eyes, which have many small lenses, the small parts which act like individual eyes, which are called as ommatidia, and that is the part that you see very prominently. And they also have simple eyes, which are called ocelli. So let's just look at these photos. So on the left side, the red insect that you see, the things on the side of the body, I unfortunately don't have a laser pointer, but the things on the side of the head, like here, are the compound eyes. So they have these individual ommatidia or these small lenses that are very close together. And this entire structure is called the compound eye. And the things on top that you see, the three small dots in the center of the head on top here, they are called as ocelli. And insects have both these kind of eyes. Each eye has a different kind of function. So the compound eyes are really sensitive to movements and light intensity and so on. So that's why they're quickly able to see, even if you're walking at a normal speed, it is very sped up for the insects because they're able to quickly sense this change in light intensity and so on. But they are not really good at making out the resolution. So they are not able to tell apart were two very closely points from each other, but they're able to see that there are these points and maybe they should move away from it. So that's why they're really fast at responding to us trying to swat them away. The simple eyes, which are on the top, the ocelli, are again eyes only, but they respond to different kinds of wavelength of light, and they're usually used to detect the intensity of sun, which direction it is, and so on. You can see the same thing in the second photo in the middle also, where the eyes here are the black colored eyes on the side of the head, and in the center there are these three simple eyes called ocelli. So this is just a representation, cartoon representation of what these facets look like. So you can see that each of these individual, it's like a compartment. Each has a lens, just like we humans have a lens in the eye. They also have sorry, a lens. So there are multiple such lenses, like an array. And imagine how much information these lenses might be carrying to the brain for processing. So that's why while insects use eyes for similar purposes to look at shapes, sounds, shape, colors, and so on, the kind of information they extract from it is a little bit different than us. This is also because they are able to see both in the visible range and the UV range, the ultraviolet range. We humans can only look at the visible range, which is from around 400 to 7 or 800 nanometers. But insects are able to see much beyond it. They see this ultraviolet light also. So that's why the way an insect is looking at the world is very different from how a human is looking at it, apart from the size. So, for example, this is in a photo. The top part is showing the flowers as a human is seeing. You see a yellow colored flower, and you see the center part is also yellow, and everything is yellow. But in case of insects, they're able to actually see it in the UV range, and they're able to see this different pattern that the center part is darker than the edges of the flower. And it is said that these strategies have evolved so that the insects, in this case pollinators, are able to find where the pollen is, which is usually in the center, which is darker in this case. So these are called nectar guides, and a lot of flowers have these nectar guides, which are invisible to the human eye, but are very, very prominent and visible to the receiver of this information, which is the pollinator or the insect. So another nice photo is this, which is in which the right side is what a human eye is seeing for a dandelion flower, and the left side is what an insect is seeing, where again the center part is a bit dark, and this is actually where the nectar is located. So the insect usually uses the part which is on the outside to land and then move towards the nectar using this nectar guide. This is another representation in which the first column is showing what humans see, and the second and third columns are showing what a bee usually sees in this using its compound eyes. So this is really fascinating how there are so many things that are literally invisible to us humans, and it is visible to the things that are supposed to know them, like the insects. This is also true for the things like other butterflies or other animals. So not just these flowers that have these different kind of UV patches on the flower surface, but even when you see other butterflies or other insects under UV light, you see these different patches lighting up as compared to humans. So for example, this small insect in the A panel, you can see the butterfly is yellow with a little bit of um, little dark color, brown, black color on the side. But when you see it in the UV light, you see these different patches. The forewing here, the wing here in the front of the animal is again of two different shades, which we don't see very often. So you can read more about it in this link that I have attached here. I'm sure the link will be available. When you go to YouTube, you can find these resources and go read more about it. And these are really fascinating things. I find that there is a lot of the world which is basically inaccessible to us humans, and it makes us appreciate what these other smaller animals can do in their ecosystems. So this was a bit about the sight part of it. and I am going to talk about the other sensory organ, which is a scent. So scents are a bit, uh, it seems a bit complicated, but it's actually not very complicated. Scents are usually made up of chemicals. Again, sorry about the photo, it seems to have pixelated. But what this photo is showing are these different flowers in the top row. You can see the pictures there, rose and so on. And what do the scents of these flowers, what are these made of? So all these structures that you might see in some chemistry textbook in your school now or maybe in future. So these are called aromatic compounds, and you can see their structures here, lot of rings and so on. So basically, they are very small molecules made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, even nitrogen, and all of these are very less molecular weight. So because they are very light, they are able to quickly volatilize, that is, become gaseous, and they are transmitted through the air or the medium they are in, and they reach the receiver. So whatever you perceive as scent is basically different types of chemicals that are emitted by these flowers. And each scent is a blend of different chemicals. So it is not just one, but a mixture of two, three, and more than 10 compounds at sometimes. And all of these together make this unique blend, which has a unique identity. A rose doesn't smell like a jasmine, or a jasmine does might smell differently when it is newly flowered, newly bloomed jasmine versus the older one which is about to wilt away. So all these chemicals and their combinations in terms of the type of chemical, the amount of chemical makes each blend unique, and which is what gives that identity to the flower scent. These chemicals, like I was talking about, they move through the fluid media, which is air or water, and then they move through the media and reach the receiver, and then it is perceived downstream, which we'll come to in a while. But the essential part to understand is that scent is basically detection of these chemicals by the receiver. So just take an example of linalool, which is this compound on the left. It is a very common chemical which is found in floral scents in most of the flowers. And what happens is, you see the panel A here, which is the insect. In this case, the location of these detectors of smell, are located on the antenna. So you can see the antenna here, which is there are small segments which are located on the head of the body, head of the insect. So these antenna are where they house what are called olfactory sensory neurons. So they're basically neurons which are going to bind to these chemicals, in this case linalool. The chemical will bind to these neurons, and they're going to start an action potential. Action potential you might have heard again in science books, where with any stimulus is coming on the neuron, it's going to send this wave of depolarization, and that state is called being activated. So basically, a chemical is going to bind, it's going to cause this wave, and this wave is going to be transmitted all from the antenna into what is called antennal lobes, which are marked here as you can see. Antennal lobes are part of the brain that process this information. And in antennal lobes, they go to specific parts called glomeruli, which, as you can see, they look like a bunch of grapes. So each of this grape in a bunch of grapes is going to process a certain kind of chemical. So based on the combination of which of these grapes are activated, the animal is going to perceive what scent it is, what chemical it is. So please do look at this paper that I have written here. It's a scientific paper, which might be a bit too many jargon and so on. But we can definitely, I will try to find something which is a popular science article to explain how olfaction works. But please have a look because the diagrams and explanations are pretty good, and read about olfaction in the future. So why do insects need to have olfaction? So, like I said, sorry, let me just take a step back. I was talking about the antenna, but insects also can detect these chemicals using their mouth parts and the tarsi of the legs. So, tarsi of the leg are basically the end of the legs. So, for example, if this is my leg, the last part which is going to touch the substrate where it is going to land, that also has these sensors which can detect the chemicals. So basically, you can say that the insects can taste or smell through their feet also, because that is where these neurons are um, going to be detecting these chemicals. So, unlike us humans, where some of the senses are concentrated in certain parts, like the smell is concentrated in the nose, in insect it is spread almost throughout the body, and they use these different kind of placements for different kind of smells and different kind of chemicals that they want to detect. One more interesting thing is about the range of these animals. They can detect as low as one molecule in 1 or 10 million molecules of other things. That is a really, really, really low concentration. For humans, we need to have at least 100 molecules, but insects can go as low as one molecule. And you might have heard about some insects which release things called pheromones. So pheromones are a blend of chemicals again, which usually a male insect is going to release to attract the female mate to it. And oh sorry, I spoke the other way around. A female insect is going to release for a male insect to find it. So the male is basically able to detect as low as one molecule out of these so many different molecules and correctly not only detect it but also follow it and find the mate. On the one more thing which is really interesting is this, that they can detect these chemicals from several kilometers away. So imagine you as a human, for example, if you are able to do this, you are basically able to sit, for example, I am sitting here near GKVK right now, and I'm probably able to smell the dosa that they're making in CTR, which is some 7 or 8 kilometers away. I guess that would not be nice for me if I'm very hungry, but it's certainly interesting to see that there is such a huge breadth of space that opens up just because they're able to detect such lower concentrations in the atmosphere. So insects are really cool that way, and they're able to find these small bits about information about their mate, their food, and so on, and actually navigate to them from so far away. Yeah, and lastly, I'm going to talk about the sound part of it. Now, sound is, as this image is representing here, it is produced by the compression of air, and the compression is done in at periodic events. So there is a compression and there's a rarefication. There's a compression and there's a rarefication, and this compressed and not compressed air travels as a wave, and it reaches the ear or the receiving organ of any animal. So this range of vibrations or disturbances, they move through the media and they are termed as sounds. And in case of humans, like you all said in the beginning of the talk itself, that we all hear things. We use our ears to do that. But in case of insects, they use a similar organ, which is called a tympanal organ. Now, tympanum is a membrane. As you can see here in this image, it is located on the side of the grasshopper's body, and it is a membrane which is connected by neurons. And as the membrane is vibrating because it is encountering this disturbance in the air, this vibration is what the animal is going to pick up and translate as sound. So in this case, it is located on the thorax of the body, but it is located a little bit near the abdominal side also. It is located on the legs, as we saw earlier with the scent or the olfactory organs. These are also spread throughout the body. So again, unlike humans where we only hear using our ears, these insects can hear through many of these different other body parts and using this organ, which is called a tympanal organ. Again, as similar, we spoke with the olfaction part of it, their range is also quite different than what humans do. So insects can hear sounds from 10 to 300 kilohertz, which is amazing. Can someone tell me how much can humans hear? What is the range of frequency that we can hear? You can type in the chat box maybe. Okay, maybe I will tell it now, but do okay. No worries, I can tell that. So humans hear from 20 to 20 kilohertz, which is even the lower limit is higher for insects. So we hear only 20, but insects can hear up to 10 kilohertz, and we can hear only up to 20 kilohertz, while insects can hear up to 300 kilohertz. So that's again a larger range. So there are yeah, someone has tried to say something, I think.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
the range of human sound is 20 to 20,000 hertz. Below 20 hertz is infrasonic, and above 20,000 hertz is ultrasonic.
Correct. So insects can basically, like you said, listen to both infrasonic and ultrasonic as well. Because 20,000 hertz is 20 kilohertz, and that is much, much lower than what the higher limit of insects is. So we cannot hear a lot of the things that insects can. And they're also, like us, able to determine the direction of sound. But now imagine the insect is this tiny, and in spite of being in a very tiny space, they're able to determine which direction the sound is coming from, and whether they need to move away or towards it. So, given their size, given the size of their brain and such, it's really remarkable how they're able to do it in such quick speeds. So again, there was a talk a few months ago. I think Dr. Pritha had talked to you about moths and how they're able to avoid the bats that are going to eat them. So the moths are a really good study system where people have explored how not only do they detect these sounds, but they're also able to quickly process them and escape bats being predating on them. So they're a really cool system to understand how these tiny brains and bodies can process information on such a large um, such a small scale and make the decisions to avoid being eaten. So it's really nice that insects are able to do all this, and we humans are basically only exploring a very small part of the ecosystem around us as compared to them. So again, please refer to this link here where you can read more about the ears of these insects and how they use the ears to survive in the world. So lastly, I also want to take you through a few other kinds of sensory organs that insects have. For example, there is a thing called electroreception, in which insects are basically able to sense the electric field of where they are in. So just as an example, most of the insects are positively charged, while the flowers are negatively charged, and they are able to actually find those flowers very quickly because they can sense the electric field around the flower, and that is called electroreception. So that has been first was explored in insects like bumblebees, which are good pollinators. But then very quickly, people realized that a lot of other insects also do that. So uh, I'm not going to talk much in details about it now, but I have given a list of resources towards the end that you can definitely go and read about. So similar to electroreception, insects also can sense the magnetic field of the earth. And you might have heard about insects migrating like locusts and monarch butterflies and dragonflies and all. And it has been said that they orient themselves according to the magnetic field, or they follow the magnetic field to go where they have to go. So this has been studied very well in birds now, but insects are also now fast contenders to understand how migrations happen on such a large scale. So these insects are able to not only detect the magnetic field, but use it to navigate over such large spaces. Again, you can find more information in the links I have shared later. Um, the third thing I want to describe is about vibration. We were talking about hearing just now, where the vibrations are coming through the air. But now scientists have started to explore that the vibrations also come through the surface. So for example, if I'm sitting on a table and you tap the other end of the table, I'm going to feel it through my hand. I might not hear it, but I'll feel it in the hand. So the vibrations are coming through the surface of the table. And animals also do that on the substrates, on say this stem that this tree hopper is on. the tree hopper not only produces sounds that go through the stem, but also receives and perceives these sounds and reacts accordingly. So this is also another very cool thing that insects do. And lastly, they also use the temperature of their surroundings to navigate and move around. A very classic example is mosquitoes, which are really attracted towards humans. And one of the factors that mosquitoes use to find the humans are the temperature. So they can distinguish us, a warm-blooded animal, from the remaining surroundings, which are at a lower temperature than that. So again, thermosensation is really cool, and they are clearly very effective because we get so many mosquito bites. So not just the three kinds of sensory organs I spoke about, but again, these are the four kinds that I wanted to emphasize, and there are several more that you can explore. And these are the links that I would like you to read. I have made sure that these links are not scientific papers, but just articles. And if you do want to read them, please do get in touch with me. You can use either of the email IDs or these social media handles to do so. And I'll be happy to send you these resources or discuss more things if you would like. Or just talk about insects. That's also fun. But that would be the end of my presentation, and I'm really happy that you all were really active in that and answering both by unmuting and on the chat. So that's it from my side. But if you have any questions, I think Sanya, we can start doing that, right?
Thanks, Gauri. This was really, really interesting. There were so many things that I also didn't know. Uh, so we
Thanks.
have some time for questions. What I'll do is I'll
Mm-hmm.
first read out a couple of questions that were in the chat box that
Yeah.
people asked during while you were talking, and then
Mm-hmm.
we can open the room for people to unmute and ask. So
Sure.
I'll read
Sounds good.
the first question from Anubhav. Do they reveal hidden patterns leading to honey in the UV range, a path in the normal yellow flower humans cannot see?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the nectar guides on the flowers. So it's hidden because we humans can't see it, but for insects, basically imagine this is a flower and all lines lead to where the nectaries are located. So it is like a path on which the insects can walk on and reach the nectar. So yes, they do reveal these patterns, if that's what you were asking.
Okay, then
Yeah.
the next question is do insects see infrared light? Is there any insect that sees infrared light?
Um, yeah, they do. So I think I'm not sure right now what the examples are, but I do remember reading about it. But I will find out the particular insect definitely and get back to you.
Thank you. Then another question by the same person, Mayan. If insects can sense smell from several kilometers away, how do they differentiate the smell from a vast distance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So let me just go back to the slide. Yeah. So remember I was talking about the neurons that are located in the antenna of the animal. So each neuron has a particular kind of receptor that only is able to bind to a particular kind of chemical. And that's why even if one chemical is binding to the neuron can become activated. And that in turn is going to activate one of these grapes or one of these glomeruli in the bunch of glomeruli. So based on the pattern of which glomeruli is activated, the insect is able to identify which chemical it is. So that's why even at lower concentrations, they're able to still find out what the chemical is and whether or not they should go towards it or go move away from it.
Okay, the next
Yeah.
question is don't spiders hear through their little hairs on their legs?
Yeah, so that is the thing I was talking about, vibration. Here, it is one of the examples of vibration where I've talked about tree hopper now, but spiders also sense these vibrations through the legs, like you said. So even if the web is moving, they are able to find where the movement has happened. Most likely an insect has landed and they're quickly able to go there.
And another question is can insects hear a bomb?
Uh, I've never tried that. Um, but I would say that yes, they're able to because the bomb, the sound it produces, which we can hear, does fall in that 10 to 300 kilohertz range. So I'm sure they'll be able to hear it.
Okay, I think we have taken the questions from the chat box. Aditi wants to share a fact, and then we can take
Sure,
questions from people who've raised their hands. Aditi, do you want to
sure.
unmute and share the fact? Okay, I don't know where Aditi. Rohan, do you
Yeah.
want to ask your question? You can
Yes,
unmute.
like
Mhm.
caterpillars have instars to other insects like cockroaches and all also to like the different stages also. Are they also called instars?
Yes, so it depends on which insect it is. For example, for dragonflies, someone was talking about the larva living in water. So dragonfly larvae are called naids, Naiids. I think this is the spelling. So they are also called nymphal stages. In case of dragonfly, the name is night specific to that insect. But others are called nymphal stages. So it is nymphal stage one, two, three, and so on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Siddharth, you want to unmute yourself and ask?
What is the biggest insect?
Hmm. So there are different ways to measure what large is. So when you look at wingspan to wingspan, I think Atlas moth is the biggest insect we have because the wingspan is about 30 centimeters. So this big, as big as your ruler. But in this case, like I said, it's wingspan to wingspan. So the body itself is a bit narrow, but the wings make up for the bulk of it. But there are also insects which are really large, big beetles which are very fat and plump. So I don't know that answer based on the just the body itself, but I do know that Atlas moth is the biggest, and we have it in India also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ishan,
Something more. Yeah. Um, so I also like insects. So
Good.
I love insects. I have yeah. So I have one question.
Yeah.
If I play down in my garden.
Mhm.
There I see cocoons, and
Right.
every time when I see the cocoon, they're every time different. Sometimes
Mhm.
they're small, big. So,
Yeah.
how do you know which cocoon is which butterflies?
Right. So that's a very nice question, and I'm glad that you are interested and actually looking at these different cocoons also. So there are many scientists which have been asking the same question that which cocoon belongs to what. So what they do is they basically when they find a cocoon, they just watch what is going to come out of it. And that's a test of patience, but you basically can determine which species is coming out. And once you know which species has emerged from it, then you can go back and say, for example, this A type of cocoon belongs to this species of butterfly or moth. This B type of cocoon belongs to C type of cocoon, C types of
And,
butterfly. So you can do that.
and I have one more question.
Yes.
When you're looking at the cocoon, do you know how many days does it take to the butterfly to come out?
Yeah, so again, it depends on which species it is, but I think it usually takes a few days at least because there's a lot of things that are happening inside the cocoon also. So it's just a range of, it's not a fixed number. It depends on which species it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anubhav, your hands raised.
Is is it true that the insects could hear a bomb because the insect sound frequency is 10 Hz to 300 Hz and the bomb's frequency I think is maximum up to 400 Hz?
Right. So if you remember the thing, it is 300 kilohertz. So it's 300,000 hertz. So I think it's well inside the range. Sorry, well beyond the range of a bomb.
I didn't notice the K.
Yeah, no problem.
Uh, we have one question from Lochana.
Mhm.
Scent pouch is present on males in butterflies to release pheromones. So, is pheromone gender specific in all insects?
Yes, it is. So pheromones are released only by the females to attract the males. Sometimes males to attract females also. So it is very specific to the insect species and the sex of the insect also. So a male pheromone will be different from a female pheromone. And that's important because that helps them to identify whether to go to the insect other that follow that smell. Because if it doesn't belong to a species, then there's no point in going. So that identity is really strong and important.
Okay. If we have any more questions that I've missed from the chat box, please unmute and ask. Also, I wanted to just point out one thing. We have put a link in the chat box for feedback. So please do take a few minutes out and fill that feedback form. Sorry, someone's saying something.
There's some sound from my end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bhargavi, you wanted to ask something?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I wanted to ask, I had read this fact somewhere and
Mhm.
I just wanted to check that are all male mosquitoes vegetarian and are some of them vegetarian?
So as far as I know, the species which bite humans, Anopheles aedes culex, these mosquitoes, only the female bites humans and the males are vegetarian. So they only suck plant sap. So yes, true for these species that I know of, but I am unfortunately not sure about the other species. So I'll have to find out about
Okay.
it.
Um, I'm also going to share all the links that Gauri has shared in the presentation for you to read.
Yeah.
We'll share that with you over an email after the session. And we'll also share the feedback link. So please take out some time to fill the feedback so that we can plan these sessions better for you. Are there any more questions, remarks? You can unmute yourself and ask. Siddharth?
Yeah.
Yes. You can unmute yourself, Siddharth.
Uh, why do all insects not have wings?
Yeah, that's again a good question. So in insects also there are several smaller groups. So the two groups which are considered to have evolved very earlier earlier in the life. So they don't have wings, and they usually don't. It's said that they don't really require wings because of the way and the habitat in which they live. So they're mostly subterranean, meaning they live under the ground or in small gaps and crevices. So they don't need to have wings to locomote because wings or flying is a very metabolically or energetically expensive process. So the hypothesis is that they didn't need to evolve flight because they were not really moving that far. So they remained wingless. But other insects, they did evolve flight, and if you notice, for example, ants, not all stages of an ant's life cycle has wings. The ones that we see around the worker ants, they don't have wings. But when they are going to go on a mating flight, that is when the wings emerge. So even in the same life cycle, they might or might not have wings. So it just depends on what you have to do at that point in life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Anubhav and Ishan have their hand raised. Anubhav, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I could. Why do some ants like the caterpillar or the red velvet ant have wings while others do not?
Yeah, so like I was just saying, some of the ants they have wings only when they have to go on a mating flight. So when the colony is moving from one place to another, or when the males evolve these wings to go and mate with the queen, that is only when they evolve wings. But other than that, they shed the wings and they just move on the ground like we usually see them do. So at certain life stages only they have these wings because that's when they require the wings for their completing the life cycle.
Yeah.
Ishan?
Yeah. So I I was like, so once when I was playing in the
Mm-hmm.
water, I had seen the different type of an insect.
Mm-hmm.
It was stuck to the ground of the water, means the
Okay.
surface of the
O-
water, and it would see an ant dead or floating in the water. It would
mhm.
catch it and eat it.
That's
So,
very cool.
do you know what insect it could be?
I don't know what that insect is, but I can find out from my friends who actually know about this. Unfortunately, I don't know what that is. But it's very cool
Ma'am,
that you saw this.
ma'am,
Yes, yes.
I think it's the wolf spider, which catches
Uh,
dead insects from the water.
yes, but I don't know if the spider will be under the water to catch the
No,
insects.
it just sits on a water lily, waits for an insect to come here, and then it catches it.
Could be. I'm not a spider expert, but I thought that the insect that he was describing was in the water at the bottom of the pond. That
Yeah,
I don't know.
was it a water strider? Like those,
They're usually on the surface. They
yeah.
just move on the surface itself, not underneath it. But it would be good to ask these questions to some expert. I'll try to find out from my end as well. Um, maybe you can drop me an email here somewhere and I can find out and respond what the answer is.
I think it's a water skater. It's a water
Okay,
spider, not skater.
okay, let's discuss this in a separate forum. But because I am not equipped to handle that, answer that right now. I don't have that information.
We'll also share Gauri's email so you can send all your questions to her and she'll answer them for you.
Yes. Even
Or
if
to
I don't know the answer, I know people who
answer
can,
them.
so I can get back to you.
Also, thank you, Anubhav, for writing this. Uh, Anubhav has shared their experience.
Oh,
It's a long
wow.
note.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Hmm.
Thank you.
We close our session soon. Any other last question?
Thank you, Anubhav.
I want to ask Gauri ma'am, what language does she talk?
At home, I talk in Marathi at home. I'm from Pune, but I also know Hindi and English, a bit of Gujarati and Nepali.
Okay, ma'am. I have a Time Life Asia book of insects.
Okay.
I'll show it. Yes.
Very
Till then,
quickly, maybe.
Ishan. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ishan, do you want to ask your question till then?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ushan has raised his hand also.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay, Bhargavi.
Um, are there any insects which are like poisonous for dogs?
Poisonous for dogs. Uh, I don't know. I have to ask a vet to answer that. In general, I wouldn't recommend eating insects that you don't know. because even insects like honeybees and ants have a little bit of formic acid and such small amounts of venom in them for their predators. So even if it might not be poisonous, it can certainly cause some irritation and other reactions. So best to avoid them if you don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because my dog, she eats every insect which she can catch.
Maybe you should ask your vet once just to make sure that your dog is safe.
Sam, even I talk Marathi.
Oh, nice.
Even
Are you also from Maharashtra?
Yes.
Oh,
I
nice.
also talk Marathi.
Oh, so many Marathi people here. That's very
Chalo.
nice.
So
Nice.
I
Yeah.
think
Should
we'll
I?
end the session with this. Sorry, Gauri, you were saying something.
Yeah. No, no, I was just saying that I'll maybe stop sharing the screen. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Huh.
better. Yeah.
Okay. Do you all want to turn
Thanks.
on your cameras for just a second so that we can take a photo? Varsha, would you
Yeah.
please take a screenshot?
Yeah, Sanya. Yes.